It was the middle of the night. A car turned up. They run to the door of the supermarket.
This is the terrifying moment when a group of armed youths broke into an IGA supermarket at East Bentley in Victoria earlier this month.
Hammers, machetes, sledgehammers. The smoke screen goes off.
According to the Crime Statistics Agency in Victoria, the rate of theft from retail stores is the highest it's ever been.
Find out roughly when.
Fred Harrison, who runs 80 IGA supermarkets, says his employees have had enough.
We see violence now almost every day across our network of stores, and aggression, violence is often at the foot of it during business hours.
There are video surveillance cameras installed across Fred's shops, but he would like to also use facial recognition to make his staff feel safer.
Facial recognition could be utilised within the store to say that a person of interest has perhaps just come into the store. It puts us ahead of the game. Providing that the right rules are in place, I would think the retail industry would absolutely welcome this.
Fred says he's aware that when perpetrators wear balaclavas, the technology won't work.
I get that facial recognition is not going to solve or help every single step of the day. But look, if we can reduce it by 10, 20, 30%, that too is a massive step in the right direction.
The Privacy Commissioner recently investigated the personal information handling practices of Kmart and Bunnings. Kmart is still under investigation, but it determined that Bunnings broke the law when it used facial recognition technology in 63 of its stores without telling customers.
You can protect customers, you can protect your staff, but you can also do so in a way that upholds the right to privacy.
Bunnings defended this practice, saying it was used to protect staff and customers from violence and organised crime. It released this compilation of CCTV, saying it shows what their teams have been through lately.
The CCTV looks quite grainy and from a distance. The people are in motion, and so there's motion blur which is happening. And so a lot of issues can come about, not because the technology isn't able to do the job, but because it hasn't been set up in a way that's optimal.
Facial recognition technology does a lot more than your average video surveillance. It takes an image of your face, which then gets translated into a string of numbers. Those numbers are compared with numbers from other images, and the calculations create a face print. This biometric lab tests the accuracy of facial recognition software. It's run by Dr. Ted Dunstone.
The system that we have set up within the laboratory is a simulator which is intended to allow us to understand how these systems work under a variety of different conditions. So if I put on a hat and dark glasses, you can see on the screen that the face recognition system and the face detection system is having trouble even finding my face, and in many cases I'm basically disappearing completely from view. Even where it's able to capture an image, the information that it's capturing is really not very useful.
Ted says that these technologies can sometimes show bias against certain populations.
Often the technology may struggle because it is using images from, say, a CCTV. If people have darker skin colours, that can make it more difficult to pick out features. False identification is really one of the key concerns, because if you have false identifications, you have people that are potentially being labelled as, not welcome in a particular store when actually it isn't them.
The Privacy Commissioner's investigation was triggered by a complaint made by the consumer advocacy group Choice. Their lead researcher, Dr. Kate Bauer, got interested after receiving a tip-off about Kmart.
The staff member said to them, we just need to check the facial recognition cameras to make sure that you didn't steal it. And they went, what? And then they told me and I went, what? And we were all very surprised, and I thought, let's see how widespread this is.
Kate Bauer was surprised when she began to uncover the extent of this practice.
We kept looking into where facial recognition was being used and found that it was being commonly used in casinos, particularly in the gaming floor, so including the big casinos around major cities around Australia, Sydney, Melbourne and Perth, and also being used in stadiums. So big stadiums that most people would have visited to see a sporting match or a concert like the SCG and the MCG.
She recently found out that sections of the hospitality industry may have also adopted the practice.
For example, Merivale in Sydney, which has a string of venues, probably most well known for the Ivy, also has the use of facial recognition technology in their privacy policy. But as far as we were able to tell, it was very hard to find signage or to find specific information about which venues were using the technology.
Merivale declined to comment.
Our Privacy Act is almost 40 years old. It was drafted before the internet, let alone artificial intelligence.
After extensive consultations, the first wave of Australia's privacy law reforms have been introduced into federal parliament. If passed, the law will give the Privacy Commissioner more regulatory powers. But former Human Rights Commissioner Professor Edward Santow says it doesn't go far enough.
The current bill has no provisions dealing directly with facial recognition technology. This bill would deal with less than 20% of the reforms that the government has committed to.
Professor Santow believes the reforms should also include tougher penalties. In the case of Bunnings, there were no financial consequences for breaking the law.
Penalties serve a deterrent effect. That's why individuals who break the law are at risk of going to jail. And the same is true of companies. Companies go, well, this might be a law that we can afford to break.